State GOP spokesperson Jennifer Carnahan and other state Republicans are saying that any tax increase by Governor Walz is, quote, preposterous and detrimental. Blois Olson with Fluence Media joining me in this conversation to talk more about this. Blois, what is so preposterous and what makes it detrimental by taxing the wealthiest, as the governor has said he would like to do? Or well, not taxing them, but increasing taxes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the governor's going to have his position, and it's really about a negotiation, right? The news today is good news that we have a $1.6 billion surplus going into the next biennium. We also increase our surplus in this biennium. So the current checking account has more money than we thought it would before. Previously, it showed about $400 million in additional funds. Now it could be, north of almost $1 billion just between now and July. So the governor is going to continue to push for a tax increase on people who make over $1 million a year. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that it's positioning for the budget negotiation, which arguably is going to go on now for 2 or 3 more months.
Where is this money coming from that we have that is now extra? Because it's quite significant with the numbers just being released today. And I'm thinking, well, that's great news. Is anybody even going to question where's that coming from?
Well, I think it's coming from a few different places. One is I think that the forecast that the state did at the beginning of the pandemic was very conservative, kind of worst case scenario. And then I think that the economy didn't do as poorly as anybody thought it would. Then you take corporate taxes. Companies like Target and Best Buy have done very well. Most people in upper and middle income jobs kept their job. They paid taxes. And then the stock market, obviously capital gains taxes, did very well. So I think that's the piece. The governor is going to continue to argue that there are people in Minnesota, which we can't deny, that have been impacted deeply economically by this pandemic, and that we need to kind of get them back on their feet. And so I think that's going to be the nature of the debate going forward.
How is the tone at the Capitol as far as, I know that the Senate has put out some proposals, House members have had some of their own votes. I mean, pick your issue. There's a ton of them that have happened just in the last week since you and I last talked, and where relationships are right now. Are we going to be able to see them working together?
My sense is they want to get a budget done on time. They need to get it done by July 1st, but they're will be in special session if they don't get it done by mid-May. My sense is this makes solving the budget challenge easier. The question is, when does the governor give up his tax increase proposal? When do legislators stop talking about other cuts? There's a couple PPP tax incentives that they're going to want to get off and start doing. And I would say that we'll know by mid-March, early April, whether or not we're in for the long haul or if there's a sense that they can make some progress sooner rather than later.
Okay, that's state politics. Let me take a quick break. After the break, let's talk about what's happening in our nation's capital and the stimulus package and minimum wage. Give me 2 minutes. I'm continuing my conversation with political analyst Blois Olson. Before the break, Blois, we were talking about state politics. Let's shift now to federal politics and what's happening in Washington. Politicians ready to move, Democrats ready to move on a $2 trillion COVID relief bill under the plan. You and I would get a $1,400 check in stimulus money. Is that going to happen?
Well, I think it will happen. I think that it's very popular. I think even Republicans understand that it's popular and probably the last big push for stimulus money, especially if the vaccines continue to get out and the economy reopens. The biggest liability for Republicans going into the next election is that the economy is faltering. And so I think this will get done.
The minimum wage is a contentious issue between the parties. Democrats want a $15 minimum wage on the federal level. Even here in Minnesota, our Democrats want a higher minimum wage. Republicans are pushing back. Now, one Republican has said that they will vote for a minimum wage increase on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, it's a complicated issue. Here in Minnesota, it's complicated depending on what part of the state you're in. In the Twin Cities, just because of the labor shortage, starting wages in hospitality and other industries have been over, $13, $14 an hour for a few years. And so I think really on a federal level, this is going to be a tough pill to swallow for Republicans if it passes, but they will then use it going forward. And again, you have to think of other parts of the state, like in southern Minnesota, where the cost of housing, the cost of life is just less. And so restaurants, other industries can't just automatically raise their prices to cover additional wages.
There's a nonpartisan arbiter who's advising President Biden and Democrats against even bringing the minimum wage to the table. Is that right?
Well, I think it's about playing to their base and making sure that the far left of the Democratic Party isn't pushing back against Biden right away. He wants some wins in these first 100 days, and the minimum wage would be a big win for him, and it would allow him to then shift to some other issues that he wants to deal with that maybe the far left isn't as excited about.
How about our Minnesota lawmakers, Klobuchar, Tina Smith, Jim Hagedorn down here in the 1st District, work that's getting done by our lawmakers? I haven't heard a whole lot from them.
Well, Senator Klobuchar was front and center this week in the review of the Capitol surge on January 6th. I know that Representative Hagedorn was active in the Small Business Committee about the $15 minimum wage this week. That's chaired by another Minnesotan, Dean Phillips. And so they have been rolling up their sleeves doing the work. And I think that's typical of Congress this time of year.
And Tina Smith did come out and was talking about the energy increases, the natural gas prices, and how we're all here in Minnesota going to see some spikes because of what happened in the South. And so they want to investigate why our prices would go up. Do you know anything more about that?
No, there was also a state hearing on that this week. And I think we're anticipating, that cold spell was just 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. They know that trading prices went up, but we haven't seen it in our bills yet. And I think that will be the real questions will get asked at that time.
What about people who say politics very much comes into play with our gas prices at the pump? And we keep hearing, nope, that's not the case. But other people are arguing it has to be the case. They've only gone up in the last month.
Well, there's more demand because of the economy reopening. I think that's part of it. I think cold weather has something to do with it. So, nobody's ever happy with gas prices. Betsy, you and I can remember when they were under $1, I'm sure. And wouldn't it be great to get back there someday?
I also remember when they were almost $4, and I never want to get back to that. I barely drove. You have a good weekend, my friend. I appreciate it. Blois Olson, Fluence Media, and you want to check out The Morning Take. Thank you, friend.